So the first thing really I wanted to talk about is you need a Teams tenant. Now, obviously, you will potentially have your own, but if you want to just look at how this looks and things like that, then you can always use the Microsoft Developer Program tenant as well. That is what I use. So as a ServiceNow employee, I have my ServiceNow instance, which we will be going through and doing the install on that. And I have a 365 developer instance as well, which is how I do all of my demos. And I demo 3 or 4 times a week. Mainly to admit the guys in EMEA, because I focus on that, although I do AMS as well. So in terms of that, that's your option to be able to get that. And then you really need to sort of look at doing some setup. And there's multiple ways to be able to do this. The simplest way is to go into your Azure setup, go into your Active Directory, and just make sure you've got the right permissions for that user that you're going to use both on ServiceNow and Azure to get it all set up. As I said, I'm using admin, which is me. So when this comes back to me, you see that's mine. And the key area that you're trying to align from this perspective is this user principal name, because that will basically be the email address, for example, that you use within ServiceNow. So that's the key. They're the 2 things that need to be able to do it so it all links together. So that's what it looks like in the Azure side of things. If we go into ServiceNow, and if I go into my right option, which I didn't have up, so apologies for that. If we go into the user side of things and we go into user profiles, then go to the bottom, then this is where you go in and you basically look for the admin. Back to me in a second. So I'm just using admin. You could be using whoever you're going to be using from that perspective. Go to your admin and you can see here, without me opening the screen up, this is what you're trying to achieve. So those 2 really need to be the same. So get those mappings right and you're in a good place to start. So the next thing you need to do really is look at what you're doing from a plugins perspective. So from a ServiceNow perspective, there are really sort of 4 plugins, but we've made it simple now, so you can go and get those directly from the plugins and it will download those for you. We also have them available in the ServiceNow store, so you can just go into the ServiceNow store, do a thing on Teams, search on Teams, and you get a bit more information about it as well, and some various links and any sort of prerequisites or requirements that you need. The same as anything within the ServiceNow store. You can request it from there, or you can just do it through typical plugins link like this to be able to do that and get that working. Be aware, this doesn't happen straight away. So you need 20 minutes to 30 minutes at least to actually get those plugins activated to be able to then move forward with the sort of next step. So once you've got into that sort of level, then we need to start to look at doing the installation. So I'll go back to this one actually. And we're basically going in and just make sure I've got the right one, installing the Azure apps. So this is the sort of screen that you would expect to be able to see once your plugins have been activated within your instance. So in this case, we've got Microsoft Teams, and we're going to click on the install. Now, this is why this bit is quite important, that you have those 2 users aligned. So you can see directly it's going to be using my Teams admin from my perspective as well. And we're going to pick that account. It's going to log us on. It's going to do various things. And basically, this is just doing the first level of activation. And then the next thing that it will come back, you can see, is expanded this screen. So I've got 4. You'll typically just have 3 in terms of the things that you need to basically authorize. So Notify Connector is one of them. The request-based chat is another one, and also the tab SSO is the other one as well. And you just click on these authorized tabs. Again, it will go through this every single time, and this will give you a list of permissions. I get a lot of questions from customers, what permissions do I need to be able to do this? I would always, while you're doing this, just take a screen copy of these, so that if anybody asks in the future what permissions have come, you've got them there to be able to refer back to people as well. So I'm just going to click on accept, and this goes and basically does that part. It will go back, that bit's installed. I then do the next bit, and then I'll do the 3rd one as well. I have to go through all these steps to be able to take you to the next step. So just bear with me a second while we do that. And then once we've done this, and you can see it's relatively quick and simple the way it does that. As I did mention, though, it's always worth having a Teams admin with you, just in case you get something that says it won't do it. Because occasionally that will happen, but I've not seen it too often, but occasionally you do. That's all done correctly, and that's all in place. So we've actually got all that bit simply done. The next bit is to actually get that VA part as well. So from a virtual agent perspective, then what we do is we go in and we type in this. So you notice I'm using lots of shortcuts. Apologies for that, but basically this is all documented as well. But this takes you to the messaging apps integration, and you sort of learn as you use ServiceNow more and more that there's lots of little shortcuts that get you to where you want to be. Also save them as favorites. Good tip to always do these. Now I've got a couple of other things because it's a demo instance. So I've got Slack and Workplace from Facebook also installed. You may just have this Microsoft Teams bit based on what you did from your plugins perspective. And this one's really simple. You can see here I've got nothing installed at the moment. So again, we'll click on install. It will basically take us to that third-party site, which is Teams, and then it will try to log us on. Again, that's why we're using the same user across the board here. And that's basically done it. So that's all set up. If I click on go to MS Teams, then this will now take me back to Teams. If I go back to this tab here, you can see, if I refreshed it, you'll be able to see that it will have my Teams, it'll come up in a second, it will have my Teams installed. So we've basically gone in and done that. So I've gone to my Teams. And now what we need to do is we need to install the custom application. And I'm going to show you two ways. I'm going to show you the simple one, the out-of-the-box one. If you go down to apps here and you type in, rather than type in anything ServiceNow, because you'll see on this screen, I've already installed what I'm going to show you in step 2. But basically what you type in here is virtual agent. And it helps if you spell it right. There we go. And this is the one that you want to basically add. So you can go in and you can add this. You would have add rather than open. And this will take it directly into here. And you can see it goes through an installation to tell you who it is, gives you some tips about what you can do. And then it will link directly to whatever you have within your ServiceNow environment. So you can see from this perspective, we have all the different, and I've got a lot because it's a demo environment, a lot of different conversations from a virtual agent perspective, which you can utilize to your customers. You may have a few. This is really the key driver. The virtual agent part, these topics and conversations that you have will really drive those cost savings and help the user to help themselves a lot simpler and a lot easier. So that's one way, but it's not branded at the moment. It's just called virtual agent. There's nothing special I've done around it. And we're missing another bit, which is the ability within ServiceNow to have the portal embedded as well. So we can have the employee portal or the service portal embedded within this particular thing. And to do that, you need to take a little bit of a different look at things. So if we go back to ServiceNow and we type in manifest, I have to make sure I can spell this right. I never do. What you have here is that ability to, under ServiceNow for Microsoft Teams, part of the plugin, you will have a ServiceNow for Teams. Now, dependent, and you'll also see that's updated now, so we've got my Teams site that I've got. If you go into here and you've got that ServiceNow for Teams application manifest, it may look slightly different. So this is my Rome version. I've also got a San Diego version. They do exactly the same things, but I will show you both. What you have the ability to do here is, if I move this back to draft, for example, we've got the ability to change the name. So that name at the top will be different and it will be a custom application. You can change the full name. You can change the images if you want. So again, you can download images. Just make sure when you do the images, they're the right size, both in terms of size and number of pixels. Tells you in the help how big they need to be. Otherwise, you won't get past this screen. You can also enable the tabs. You can call the tab name for the portal something different. It could be either your hub or employee center, or you'll see I've changed mine to a different one. And just make note of that version number, and I'll explain about the version number in a couple of minutes. So what you basically do for this is you then do move to ready, and then you would download that manifest file. And that will basically appear as a zip on your desktop or laptop, whatever device you're using to be able to do this. And then that's what you need to use when you go back into Teams. So from a Teams perspective, what you would then do is you go back to these apps that we had here. You'll go to the Manage Apps here, and you'll go to Manage Your Apps. And you can see here you can upload an app. Now, I've already uploaded mine, but this is where you have that ability to be able to do that. And this is then when you get that custom application that you've got. So this is ultimately where, for example, if I go into this, spelling it correctly, from a ServiceNow perspective, I should have my app here. Just check. But that's where that manifest file will actually upload itself. And as I said, it will look different within, slightly different how you do it within San Diego. So if I very quickly go to San Diego, I can show you how it looks from there as well. The options are the same. We've just put a different GUI in it, so it's exactly the same. So you can see here, you go through the generic, you configure the virtual agent, you configure the tab, you'd be in the ready, you'd have this permission, and then you download the manifest file. So exactly the same options. It just takes you more of a step case through to be able to do that. Once that's in place and you've got that, and as I say, if you go into the apps, you've got that ability to upload those apps, and you can see here on my San Diego one, I've got my ServiceNow for Teams actually already installed. So if I go to my Teams window, which I haven't got open, so let me just go to here. You'll see I've got the app here, and you can obviously pin it or unpin it, how you ever want to do it. Now, again, how do you get this onto your end users will be down to your Teams admin. Some people will get them to request it themselves. Some it will automatically be pinned. It's entirely how your organization wants to be able to do that. They need to, again, have a ServiceNow user ID and a Teams user, obviously, and have those linked together by something like the email address, a little bit like what I showed you earlier on, but obviously they don't have to be the admin. And that means they can just go to and fro without having to relog on or doing anything silly like that. So it's just a lot quicker. When I go to my Teams chat, you can see here, this is my virtual agent. So I can give it my own name or icon if I've done that. I've called the portal my own portal, so I've called it my portal. And more importantly, you've got the portal available. So previous versions from Quebec and before, when we did this, it was a separate portal that you had to configure to be able to get this to work. Now it's not. So from, I think it's from Rome onwards. If not, it might even be from Quebec onwards. It's not. You've got that ability to basically set a mirror up. It is still a separate portal, but it mirrors the one. So you can see in this case, this is my employee center. So if you went onto my ServiceNow instance, typed employee center, this is what you get. It's exactly the same. If I change something in the employee center, it will change it in here as well. So that's really quite key and simple, and just makes management so much better. So that's really simply how you've got that up and working. It really does not take, thank you, Jeff just said that the Employee Center was launched in Rome. So yeah, that's really very simple to be able to get that, that up and working. And you have the basis there, out the box installation, using your virtual agent conversations that you already have. So if I go into chat now, I have that ability to go into here and just type hi, as we saw before. And this is the way you can actually kick off those particular topics. So very simple, very easy. You can make the conversation at the start what you want it to be. But that's all around the virtual agent designer. So you go into the virtual agent designer, and these again are replicated. They're not doing anything special for Teams here. It's what you're using within your standard ServiceNow instance. There are a couple of shortcuts in here which are just worth knowing, especially for me when I'm doing demos, because I have that ability to be able to exit out of things if I want to be able to do it. So we'll see this exit in a second, he says, hopefully. Didn't work that time, typical. There's a couple which we can use. We can use restart as well. So these are just some shortcuts that you can use to basically work within the agent if you want to be able to do those. Now, what I wanted to very quickly show you is we do multiple things that work within ServiceNow. So we have these ability to be able to utilize the virtual agent, to be able to link into third parties, to be able to check ticket statuses, for example. You can use what comes out of the box, but you can also use and create your own as well to make them a little bit more sticky. So again, if I go into this, it's just going to give me a list of all those instances that we've got from that perspective. So it's very powerful in terms of what you can do. So if I want to look at one of these, for example, I can go in and say, let's have a look at what that is. And it will come back and tell me a little bit more details about that particular incident. So very powerful, very simple to be able to allow you to do this. Now, with this, I can also add comments. With ITSM Pro, you have the ability to do comments. Now, another thing I wanted to show you really is the sort of power of NLU, and I put this demo in specifically. So when I type, for example, I want to order an Apple MacBook, for example, what it will do is it will look at how well I've trained the NLU, and I've deliberately trained it in a certain way, so that when it goes off and does things, it doesn't necessarily always come back exactly what I want. But your system starts to learn. So if this is a sort of default, then it will come back with what you wanted for the default. But you can consider. So I don't want to continue with that one. What I do want to do is I want to move forward with this one. So if we go into here, this will now come back, keep searching, yes, and it will carry on doing those checks. And this time it will bring up what we see as a carousel, which you've probably seen within the ServiceNow portal. And I can pick the thing that I want. So I'm going to pick a MacBook Air. And from this perspective, I'm going to go and say, I want it. You could prompt how much memory do you want, how much bigger screen do you want, etc., etc. I'm not going to do that. So we're going to proceed with this. Nearly clicked on the wrong button. And once we're getting into this sort of level, I've also tied this into approval process as well. So what I also have is an approval process. So I'm his manager. I've got this on my mobile phone. So what I can do is, shall I submit this request? And I have the ability to be able to do that. And then this basically will go through, and it will go through an approval process. So you can see in this case, we've got the approval process. This can be directly on here, or it can be through Teams. And I can just go through and I can type something in Teams and just basically approve this. There we go. And we can basically go ahead and move ahead with that. So again, we can do approval processes on this. What we also have the ability to do is talk to an agent. So if I just use a different persona, so I'm going to go to Storm in this case, and I'm going to say I want to speak to an agent. So I will talk to an agent. You can see all the different notifications coming back. So you can do notifications very simply and very easy. Create your own. There are some out of the box, but create your own to be able to do this. It's going to connect me to a live agent. Beth has a minute to answer it, so I'll quickly go to Beth, who is my service desk agent. We can see here, Beth has a workup appointment, but she also has Storm trying to talk to her. Click on accept, and again, this will go to multiple people if you've got your chat queue set up correctly, and then whoever answers it first is the one that has the conversation. We can get Storm having this conversation, and then if you go back, you'll see this conversation can carry on in text for as long as you want it to be, or alternatively, we have some shortcuts. So one of those shortcuts you can see from this little quick actions here is to be able to actually turn this into a Teams call. So very quickly, we can turn this into a Teams call. This requires a little bit of configuration on Teams to be able to do this, but it's literally a 10-minute job. This will then send a meeting invite to Beth. It will also send a meeting invite to Storm. If we go into Storm, you'll be able to see he's been asked, do you want to accept this call? And you can have a vocal call rather than do things through type. So very simple, very easy, very nice to be able to manage. I'm not going to join it, I'm going to close it, because otherwise we'll get lots of feedback. And I'll go back to Beth and I'll do the same. And you will be able to see from here, if I go back here, we've got all those details here. And if I wanted, for example, I could also go in and very quickly create this as an incident. You do have options at the top here as well. But I could say SAP logon error, example, and that will now create an incident directly, pass that information into Beth, and also pass that information directly back to Storm. So again, very simple, very easy. We've been able to create this and be able to get those sort of levels of detail. That was employee talking to a agent workspace queue, but we can also do it from Beth's perspective. So if Beth goes and looks at all the tickets she's got open, and we'll pick, oops, we haven't got the latest one in there, let me refresh. So when this comes back, we will see that we've got Beth's one, and when that comes back, we will click on that. And on the right-hand side, so just for those people who've not necessarily seen San Diego yet, this is Agent Workspace, but actually specifically the Service Operations Workspace. So it's taken sort of Agent Workspace that we saw in Rome, taking it a step further. but what you've also got is this bar down the side. So it does look different. It uses a new interface, and we have a little bar down the side here where we can start an MS Teams chat. So the first way was employee talking from Teams actually into Service Agent Workspace. This one is actually going to create a Teams-to-Teams chat. And then this is automatically, the conversation that you have typing is then automatically imported into the activity log as well, so that you've got a full activity log that happens. And that's just a very quick overview. I just thought it was worth showing a couple of features that you might not have seen. So hopefully that's been useful. I see there's been lots of questions. That's the end of the demo.